do.
Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
Oh, that's right. Big hands at the... Well, that was awfully... Speaking of abrupt, that was awfully abrupt. I'll have to look
Kill
at that
the
for
band.
next time. Yeah, what happened? Music ended very quickly, but that means that the show is starting, and we're so glad to be with you here this week for the Bad Batch After Show, talking about episode 4, Cornered. And, yeah, it happened. I watched it. You know. And then the credits rolled, and I was like, is that it? Is that it for this week? I know I don't want to be negative. But I just got to keep it real. I just thought it was a little bit of a filler episode. At least that's my perspective. We're going to obviously be listening to you and your perspectives, starting with this guy, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. I'm so happy to be here live tonight with Jason on the surface Swank, because there's a lot more underneath the surface of this episode. I don't know how many roundtables we've led off with your claim that the episodes are shallow or empty or lightweight or unfulfilling, and by the end, you are usually whistling a different tune. And I think tonight,
Wow.
some of my observations, and I'm sure some of our listeners' observations, our callers, will be taking live calls later tonight. They'll be able to enlighten you a little bit, Mr. On the Surface.
Really?
Now, that sounds like I'm really going to throw down. I don't know if I have that much ammunition.
Yeah, I don't
to
think
back up
I don't
my
think
claim.
this episode gave you that much.
No, but there are things to be taken out of it for sure.
Okay.
And I don't want its short running time to be a reflection on the quality of the episode. Because I think it was a pretty good quality episode. And when you talk about a new series like The Bad Batch, and we are still getting to know these characters a little bit, or at least we're still getting accustomed to spending time with these characters. And I think episodes like this are essential to the big picture because of the fact we are spending time with these characters. We're getting to know them better, and they're getting to grow on us a little more. So that way, when the stakes get raised up to really high and challenging levels, we'll be along with them because we've made that connection to the characters. I
Yes,
find it
you
difficult.
just defined what a filler episode is. Exactly. We're spending more time with these characters so that when things get interesting, we're really going to have a different perspective.
Well, I think some foundation was laid also in this episode that
Oh,
will
no
be
doubt.
paying off in as the stakes get higher as the season evolves. But I mean, it is kind of typical to have these sort of episodes early on in seasons of Star Wars shows, live action like The Mandalorian, or animated like Rebels or The Clone Wars, or now Bad Batch. Supply runs. I think 50% of the entire first 2 seasons of Rebels were the characters making supply runs. I'm tired of the supply runs. I want them to have to, like when they went to visit Cut LaQuaine. Now, they were there for a purpose. They were there to try to get information out of him because they knew he was a clone trooper that they can trust. At that point, they were wanted men. Every clone had the inhibitor chips, and they were being effective on a cognitive level. So they were all hunting the Bad Batch, but Cut LaQuaine was a guy who was just hanging out, wasn't a threat to them, but could still help them with some information and stuff. I mean, the tables turned. They ended up helping Cut LaQuaine at the end of the day. And now we're going on supply runs, though. So that kind of leaves me, I guess, with a little empty feeling. But they do have to get the ability to survive on their own. They have to, and what they need are the credits. And so this is going to become a bigger and bigger issue because we keep hearing about how the Imperials are really heavily regulating the spending and all of that. And
yeah, I hear in the next episode, Wrecker gets a paper route. So he's going to be able to
Wrecker
get
gets
those.
a paper route so he can afford it.
So that, yeah.
Oh,
so they can do
man,
that.
I didn't see that coming. You know, you got Echo mowing lawns. Yeah, they want to go to a snow planet so they can shovel some driveways, clear the driveways for folks.
You
Yeah,
got
they
it.
need
You
to
got
pick up
you got
a few extra bucks.
Hey, before we go any further, I want to bring on Tyler, our very esteemed official program monitor and call screener. Chut, Tyler. Great to have you.
Chut,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I do want to speak to the filler, non-filler part of this, because for me,
I don't remember us asking you, Tyler.
There was one, there's one big cohesive thing. I know you're not asking me, but
I like how he just rolled right over it.
I'm going
no
in.
respect, I tell you, no respect. Okay.
when you
Just
have
kidding.
Mando, you've got the end of the Empire. And when you have this, you have the beginning of the Empire. So it's, for me, this whole story is coming together, and it's just telling the bits and pieces of the Empire that we haven't seen.
Are you
And
calling the
I
whole
love that.
thing filler because it's between the beginning and the end?
No, it's filler in the respect that it's plugging into the gaps of the stories of the Empire we don't.
I hear you. I guess I'll say that. We don't need to really talk about the episode in chronological order. I mean, my biggest disappointment was that we didn't find out who was on the other end of the Fennec Shand, transaction. They owed me that. I'm sorry. After 23 minutes of watching this episode, I thought, well, the payoff is going to be, because I really didn't think she was going to get Omega. That wasn't going to happen. But at least we'd get that maybe hologram transmission, or that, she walks into a room and who is it going to be? That's what I felt like we deserved at the end of the 23 minutes. Had that happened, truly, I would have had they revealed that to us, I'd have had a completely different outlook on this episode, because it would have made up for it. I needed
So do you
that.
want to make any? Okay. Do you want to make any speculation as to who is on the other end of that communication at the end of the episode? And
I think it's
she
Lama
talking to?
Sue. I think she's working for the Kaminoans. I think they want her back. I don't think it's Empire. I don't think it's Palpatine. I think it's the Kaminoans.
Oh, okay, that's a good guess.
Because she didn't hurt her. She didn't hurt her. And the other thing that I would point out is that she didn't kill that Sullustan. That contact that she has on Pantera, which shows that there is, and of course I think we know this through Fennec in The Mandalorian and her relationship with Boba Fett, that there is a code. There is a sense of honor, I think, with her and Boba Fett. They're not just murderers, for hire, although she does take out a few folks in this episode. I loved seeing her. I thought it was great. I loved the way she looked in the show. It was so great having Ming-Na Wen doing the voice. I do have a question, though. How old is this is she by the time we get to Mandalorian? Because she obviously ages quite well.
Maybe she's a droid.
Oh.
Because she does reveal that, when she pulls open that midsection part and shows her guts, as when questioned, how did you survive? She shows the metallic guts. We assume that that's the result of some operation to save her life. But what if she's always had metallic guts? What if she's an android? It could be possible. I think. I don't think there's anything out there that would debunk what I'm saying. It's not like I'm gonna.
Well, we've never seen in Star Wars hyper realistic androids, have we? With
No. Well, in the
skin
expanded
and all of
universe,
that.
remember in the expanded universe, Shizor had a human replicant droid named Juri, or Guri. I don't know how you say her name. I always said Juri, but and you know what? Except for in the comic book, I wouldn't mind serving some jury duty. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I should give you the tail of the tape here, and also we'll bring up the phone number and give you the phone number to call. But we are talking about Star Wars: The Bad Batch, of course, Season 1, Episode 4, Cornered. And the original air date, May 21st, 2021. And as Jim pointed out, it does have a relatively short runtime, just 23 minutes, just a little over 23 minutes, directed by Sal Ruiz and written by Christian Taylor.
Hey, there we go.
Hey.
There's a guy with a Babu Freaks. There's a guy with a Star Wars pedigree, though, is Mr. Christian Taylor. We've interviewed him a few times over the years. He is probably most famously known as the guy who wrote the Mortis trilogy. That's some pretty good street cred right there. And he was a head writer of the show for a couple of the later seasons. I think seasons 4 and 5. Christian was the head writer for the Clone Wars. And so he's worked with this crew a lot over the years. And he's a real sharp guy who I think has a really good grasp on Star Wars. So it was refreshing to see his name attached to the Bad Batch.
The number to call, 708-866-1737. You can talk to Tyler and give him an idea of what you want to contribute to the conversation, and we'll get you in the queue. And as a service to our Patreon members, we do try to put you at the head of the line, so it pays to be a member of Patreon. Thanks so much, Tyler. We'll check in with you later, all right?
See you, buddy.
All right, buddy.
Adios.
All right, so I do have some notes about this episode, which I'm not trying to take a poop on it. 23 minutes of Star Wars is better than 23 minutes of just about anything else.
Yeah, right.
But here's what I'm thinking. I think we're a little spoiled. I think with Mandalorian being limited to 8 episodes a season, they have to pack it. They really have to pack it where there's nothing wasted, no time wasted. I'm starting to feel
Frog lady.
Yeah, but wait a minute though. You can't. All right, Frog Lady wasn't the greatest Star Wars character, but there were a lot of things that were going on in those episodes.
I'm not talking about the character. I'm not talking about the character. I'm talking about the fact that it was a rather unnecessary subplot at the beginning of season 2. That's all. I mean, I didn't see what the purpose of Frog Lady was.
Wasn't it to? It was a job he had to take in order to get information that eventually led him to Bo-Katan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Right. So she was the Frog Lady is what led.
It was a job. It was a job.
But I mean, this episode alone presents us with Fennec Shand establishing herself in not only the series but this era of the Star Wars timeline. So I think on that alone, you're hard pressed to call it a filler episode because her presence in this series is going to lead to bigger things.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I just wanted the breadcrumbs to be to lead to somewhere in this episode. But
I understand. I understand. I don't mean
because I don't think Fennec Shand. Nothing against Fennec Shand. I don't think that she is a strong enough character yet, in my mind, to where she is enough. It's not like Darth Maul. Like the first time he came back, and it was like, if all that episode did was just give us Darth Maul back, that would be enough. I'm not quite sure Fennec is there for me in that sense. And also, I'm just really curious this whole time, like, who's after Omega like this? Because there are a number of suspects. But it was great to see Nine Numb's dad in this episode. He was the balding, pot-bellied Sullustan, which I love. He was like a George Costanza Sullustan.
He was voiced by Bobby Moynihan.
Yes,
he sounded
he
like
was.
Bobby Moynihan.
Yeah,
I
believe
didn't
he was.
catch the credits. I didn't catch the credits, but
Bobby,
I think that was Bobby.
Well, no, actually, he's the depot manager, right? Isn't that who that would be?
No.
It's Taron Killam.
I'm thinking of. I thought I heard Bobby was the Reese.
He is. He is the Reese.
Okay, that's who he is.
That's the
and
traitor.
I like that Reese.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. As we're tooling around Plutonia, is that the name of this planet? Plutonia? I mean, I
Pantera.
know. Or Pantera, that's what it is. Pantera.
So someone was a fan.
Plutonium.
Someone in the writers was like, come on, man. Pantera, baby.
Well, we saw it in the Clone Wars, and of course George Lucas's character in Revenge of the Sith was of that species. So we saw some of the blueskins out in the plaza there.
Oh, that's right. Those are Panteran. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah, right.
I had forgotten.
And so, I mean, it was just that authenticity and just how cool the city looked and everything. And
Loved
how
it.
Just, I mean, you get overwhelmed with all the ships and all the different assets at play, the different droids, the different speeders, everything. It's all there. And there's tons of people populating it. This is what Star Wars is all about. You want your eyes to be darting through at every corner of the frame as it comes onto
it's
the screen.
Pantora. Everybody in
Pantora.
the chat, like, all right, sorry, it wasn't Pantera. I made a joke to myself
Pantora.
when I
Is
was
it
watching the
Pantera?
episode. I mean,
Is it
I made a
Pantera?
joke, and then I believed my own joke.
Isn't Pantera a heavy metal band?
Yeah,
from
that's
the
why I said
80s?
somebody was a fan, and no, you didn't get
See?
my joke.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Respect.
Earlier.
But yeah. Well, I thought it was the planet from Avatar. So I mean,
That's
put your arrows at
Pandora,
me.
right?
That's Pandora,
Yeah, I
Pantera.
don't know.
What did I call it originally? Plutonium.
Plutonia? I don't know. But I obviously it has very Coruscant-y kind of vibe. In fact, the chase scenes were like taken right out of Attack of the Clones, and I loved that. I
Yes,
loved that they were
yes.
paying homage to Attack the Clones with the speeders and falling into the open speeders and all of that. I thought it was great. And here's the thing that I want to mention about Omega, because I have said, I think I said last week, I love that she's not always having to be rescued. And here she is in this episode having to be rescued. But there's a difference between a character being, and I guess I'm going to be an Omega apologist because I really do like the character. I think there's a difference between being a constant, precocious, maybe too cocky for your own good, bratty kid, and being naive to the ways of the world, sweet, good-natured, trusting, and that's where I think Omega is. And it would have been so easy for them to go the other way and have us get the precocious, like Ahsoka was, frankly, at the very beginning of Clone Wars.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sky Guy R2E.
Yeah, and she was real
And
cocky.
just the snottiness. She's a little snot. Ahsoka was a little snot ball. And, she was a little lippy with the stoic Jedi Knights, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Jedi Knights. And here comes Ahsoka bopping along. But, testing Anakin, really. Yoda knew what he was doing. I don't think it was typical you had headstrong Jedi like Ahsoka come along that often and at that young of an age to be already so comfortable in her own skin to where she can take on the living legends of the Force themselves and have a good time doing it.
It was quite brilliant for him to pair a headstrong Anakin with a headstrong Ahsoka, because where that could maybe go awry, and I guess you could argue that maybe it did, but the idea was that they would bring out the best in each other, and that perhaps Anakin would see maybe his own faults and flaws through Ahsoka. So it was a good plan. I don't know if it worked. We should do a show just on that. Did it work? It was Yoda's plan successful?
It's interesting too, if I can just say that this series had its second episode featuring Cut LaQuaine. I'm bringing him up again. I don't know why I'm obsessing on Cut tonight.
Big Cut fan.
But I mean, here you have a guy, Cut LaQuaine, who has established himself as a family man, a guy who displays fatherly instinct. And I think exposure to that has affected Hunter for the long term. I think that was really a revolutionary concept for him, for a clone to have fatherly instincts. And you see him developing those with Omega. And I think that's a really interesting concept, to have a clone, a test tube clone, display fatherly instincts like that. Where does it come from? And so, it just taps into the humanity of the whole thing. And Cut clearly is tapped into his humanity beyond being a soldier, just being a person.
Yeah.
And And I think that's affecting Hunter in a way, because throughout this episode, he's, chasing down Omega. And when he receives news that she's dangling from a tower or a speeder flying, thousands of meters in the air, it's just, he reacts like a father would. So
Yes, right.
I think that's an ongoing theme throughout these first 4 episodes, is the development of Hunter, who a lot of people say is Rambo now.
Oh, he's totally Rambo now. He's totally Rambo now with the earthy tones. I mean, I've got an old Rambo action figure from the cartoon. It's like it's
There
Hunter,
was a Rambo
man.
cartoon?
There was a
I had
Rambo
no-
cartoon. There was a Rambo cartoon and a Chuck Norris cartoon.
Well, of course there was a Chuck Norris cartoon, and it kicked the ass of every other cartoon out there.
Right. It's still
All right,
kicking every
yeah.
other cartoon.
It should be, yeah.
Somewhere
Chuck
out
Norris,
there. Right.
They stopped making cartoons because the Chuck Norris cartoon was so kick-ass.
Some other
They
interesting points just to mention. Obviously, the clones we mentioned earlier, trying to make this transition to civilian life, though civilian life in hiding, and as Tech pointed out, we no longer have the Republic giving us everything we need. They're not feeding us. They're not giving us shelter, giving us fuel. They've never had to worry about these things because they were, I'm guessing pretty well cared for soldiers. They were elite, and they just never had to worry about where their next meal was coming from.
Didn't we see clone troopers sleeping in barracks that were like just basically a really high wall with tiny little cubby holes large enough for a person to sleep in, and they would have to climb up a ladder, get into thing. It was like being put into a mausoleum, and that's where the clone troopers slept. But we see the Bad Batch, they had their own spacious digs on Camino with their own bunks and place for their stuff. And so I think that they did have maybe some better treatment than your typical clone, at least.
Right. And I don't think they spent a lot of time in their barracks even, so they had their own ship. I think, I
love their ship too, by the way.
Yes,
I
do.
can't get the guys are doing a great job animating that. The guys and gals over at Lucas Animation and everyone else oversees, all the thousands of people working on this.
Rumor
show.
has it it's going to be.
You ever sit through the credits? It takes forever. Go on.
Rumor has it it's going to be a HasLab, and then they're going to blow the ship up in season 2. So you're going to be able to order your. What's
I
the
can't
name of their
wait
ship?
to get my Razor Crest. They can blow it up 70 times.
It's not going to change the way you
I
feel
know.
about it.
I've had space cleared away on the shelf for the better part of the last 10 months waiting for this sucker. So, they can blow it up all they want. It's iconic now. I think the Razor Crest ranks up there with ships like the Millennium Falcon and whatever ships there
The
are
X-Wing,
that are in Star
the
Wars.
TIE fighter.
Right. Well, the little one-man fighters. Yes.
A one-man fighter. Loved seeing as you mentioned, the Reese character. The species of the chat lighted up here. The species name escapes me, but you know how you a grand. But you know how you go and you go to the pawn shop, and the guy's got like the little monocle, and he's looking. I love how he had one that had 2 instead of
Makes sense.
So so a Grand's monocle is actually a bifocal, is 2 lenses. The third one is out. That was just a funny little piece of real world.
I'm surprised he didn't have. You want real world? They should have had some like old guitars hanging up on the wall and stuff.
Right. Yeah, right.
Every pawn shop I've ever been into has that. I get so distracted by the
chat. Well, let's get distracted let's get distracted by a phone call. Let's go to we've got Matthew calling in from Florida. Matthew, a loyal Patreon supporter. Matthew, welcome to Rebel Force Radio. Hello, Matthew.
Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Chut, what's up?
Hey, thanks for the show again. I want to say first of all, I'm really happy that you guys are continuing to do the after shows. It's a great experience for all of us, I think, to be able to have a chat about them every week.
Yeah, we love it too.
I wanted to push back on something. I was hoping that Adam Bray would be here tonight because he, you guys had talked about bringing him on, but he had said something last week, and obviously you guys can still talk about it without him here, but he had said something like he didn't think that Palpatine had any connection to Omega, that he didn't think he knew who Omega was, and I that might be true, but I wanted to push back on that because, just because Palpatine is now the Emperor doesn't mean that he's giving up any of his other personas. I think he could still be, operating on different levels. And obviously, as Sidious, he had different types of operations going on that were very secret, and I'm sure he will continue to have many secretive things going on. And so I wonder if he really does know about Omega. And I mean, if you think back to who initiated the whole relationship with Kamino in the first place, that was of course through Darth Tyrannus, through Count Dooku. And so perhaps Lama Su is still operating with Darth Sidious and doesn't realize that he's being two-timed by Palpatine. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about that. And I mean, this could also connect to the current episode because perhaps he's the one that's behind hiring the bounty hunter to track down Omega. So again, thanks a lot, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks very much, Matthew. And thanks also for your Patreon support. Okay. So I want to jump on this because I like Matthew's theory here because I was about to say, no, Palpatine doesn't know anything about Omega. I was about to say that. But then I started thinking about what Matthew was just saying about Palpatine versus Sidious. And I still believe that Omega is part of some sort of contingency plan or some sort of insurance policy so that the Kaminoans don't either lose the contract to be producing troops or troopers for the Empire or for their own self-protection. But the fact that you've got Palpatine and Sidious playing both sides, who's to say that Sidious isn't encouraging the experiments going on that are creating Omega? They don't know that Palpatine and Sidious are the same. So, he could be saying, you can't trust the Republic. You must do this, and then you'll have that. And then, I could see him manipulating them into thinking that, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It makes sense to me that he could be pulling those strings on both sides as well.
The ultimate puppet master.
Right.
But we've never received any indication that Palpatine, a.k.a. Darth Sidious, in the Darth Sidious presentation, hologram, cloak pulled down over the eyes, cleft chin. Not as cool as Mark Hamill's, but cleft chin nonetheless.
No, he has a heck of a chin.
And
dimple.
Yeah. And all of that. Does he appear to the Kaminoans? I think, I wish we would see it. That's what made the Phantom Menace so good, is we understood right away that Darth Sidious had influence over the Nemoidians and the Trade Federation. We knew that right away. So that helped us understand their motivation. They were being manipulated. And as we learn about Palpatine and we understand the connection between him and Darth Sidious, we understand he's always playing both ends against the middle.
Right.
That's what he does. He's the ultimate manipulator. And so I would love to see a holographic communique with Lama Su or Nada D or Badabdu or whoever is there.
Bada Bing.
In Bada Bing. Whoever's there. Felt good to say that, actually. Bada bing. It just I would like to see that. That would be great. But it's something we can assume, maybe. But I think that complicates the story a little bit to insert Palpatine into the dealings of the Kaminoans. But remember, it kind of goes back to the old Sifo Dyas thing. And if you sort of play around with Sifo Dyas, it could sound a little like Sidious. Sifo Dyas, Sidious, that was the speculation as Attack of the Clones was being released and everything.
Well, we know that's not the case because we've seen it covered.
Well,
Sifo Dyas was.
I think it was a seed Lucas planted. It was a seed Lucas planted, and it became too much of a puzzle to figure out. And also implement that story into the fall of Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith. And so George just scrapped it because for better clarity in Anakin's story, the origin story of Darth Vader. I mean, that's a pretty important story to tell, and I don't think he wanted Palpatine to do anything in the story other than manipulate the whole situation to control Anakin and oversee his transformation to Darth Vader. I think that's always part of the plan, you know?
Thanks to the chat for I'm getting my Lama Sus and my Nala Says mixed up.
Nala Su, bada ding, bada ding.
Nala Say is the, am I right? The sort of the motherly female over that was working on the Omega experiment, that is Nala Say. The prime minister of Kamino is Lama Su, right?
Nala Se, Nala Sa, Nala Makusa. Nala Se, Nala Sa, Nala Makusa. Nala Se, Nala Sa, Nala Nakusa.
All right, let's see what Blake wants to talk about. Blake's also calling in from Florida. A lot of Florida calls. Not much going on in Florida right now, huh?
There's always a lot going on in Florida. Chut, boys.
Yeah.
Hello.
Chut.
Hey, guys, so I think I got a really good question this week. And it kind of ties in with the weekly show with JR, too, and the last caller.
FJ?
FJ.
I would love to have
FJ,
JR
sorry,
on,
FJ.
but alas, it's not happening.
Who shot
He
that
doesn't
guy
exist.
anyway?
There's this and that.
His brother, right?
I can't remember.
So I think that the person that Fennec Shand was talking to was actually still the Empire. We saw in Mandalorian how they were hunting down sweet baby Yoda for the cloning stuff for Snoke and all that. Is it possible that Omega is the first kind of test subject they want for this program? And I ask that because now I did not read the Rise of Skywalker novel, and I won't. But based on what I heard off of Rebel Force Radio. That I think at the beginning of the book, Jim Mack, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it throws you back to the beginning when Palps is being thrown down the shaft in the on the second Death Star, and it kind of talks briefly how he had this plan all along that Vader was going to eventually betray him, and he had this plan going all along for a backup and yada yada yada. But how far back did that plan go? Did that go as far back as, initially, right? I know, Anakin just became Vader at this point. He's still fresh. But could it have gone back this far? Could Palpatine, do we know how far back that plan really went?
Well, we
Is
don't.
there anything in novels or comics?
Well, I think the only thing that really... What's that?
I think I can answer that.
Oh, go for it.
So we're talking specifically about the Palpatine, his plan B, about transferring his. Is that what we're talking about? Transferring his essence into a clone, okay, all right.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm wondering, could it have started right when he got that apprentice? I mean, Anakin was so fragile as it was. I mean, could it already have been off the bat? Palpatine was like, well, maybe I need to have the plan B now. And now Omega may be that first little clone subject. I mean, we don't know yet if she's force sensitive or not. So there's kind of jumping to conclusions. But
Palpatine.
you never know with this.
Well, he's obviously Palpatine's a guy who's inherited the Sith legacy, and it's been passed down for 1,000 years. So you imagine there's already a lot of assets at his disposal as Darth Sidious, but not necessarily as Emperor of the Universe, which is what his goal is to become. Sure, he has a lot of influence in Sith matters, but he wants ultimate power. He wants to become the ruler of the galaxy. And so what did he inherit then from someone like Darth Plagueis? What, I'm thinking specifically about the situation on Exegol, okay? And you have all of these devotees, people who obviously have spent their whole life as members of this dark side cult that supports the Sith Lords that we never knew about, and they were hidden away in secret. that's something I think has been going on for the better part of the last millennia, ever since Darth Bane started the Sith, the Sith Lord rule of two. It doesn't mean there isn't a cult that can follow those two guys around. And so they've been cultivating cultivating the cult for 1,000 years. And that's why those cats are all hanging out in that temple on Exegol. That's why they've devoted their entire life, their families, everything to supporting the rule of the Sith and devoting themselves to keeping it all quiet. Some of this stuff is actually being shown in the latest Darth Vader comics. Darth Vader from Marvel, issue 11, features a lot of this. Vader visits Exegol. And that's how he becomes subservient to Palpatine, is because he's a little bit of a rebel, especially after learning Luke Skywalker is his son. He experiences a little bit of a rebellion against Palpatine, and Palpatine needs to put him in his place. So he exposes Vader to Exegol and lets him realize the ultimate power that he has at his disposal. And it's really interesting because then that makes Vader a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Easier to control.
Docile. He's more docile.
Yeah, he understands now what he's up against. It's not a dude. It's a guy who's inherited 1,000 years of Sith power.
Yeah. Do you guys think, though, that once, Palpatine knew off the bat that Anakin was very fragile from the beginning, though. He watched his kid, he'd watched him since he was a kid. Do you think, let's just say, do you think he could have had a plan, just knowing the fragility of this kid since he was, 9 years old, something like that, early on, even though he took him on as apprentice already, like he knew his power. Why not take that power since it's there? But if you know the kid's fragile, why not have a plan? Right off the bat. Especially given this dude orchestrated a whole war just to get what he wanted.
Yeah,
does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. I think that story was written in the old expanded universe, but I don't know that he. It is odd that we have not been introduced canonically to Palpatine's Plan B, because if you know that he had Dooku waiting in the wings after Maul, and he had Anakin waiting in the wings after Dooku. But after Anakin Vader, we're not really aware of the next one, the next contingent. Well, no, I take it back. Of course, it's Luke Skywalker. Luke is the one that Palpatine is thinking. And it's not until he says, "So be it, Jedi," in Return of the Jedi on the Death Star 2, that I think he realizes that, all right, I'm going to take both of these punks out and I'll find somebody, or maybe he's thinking he doesn't need anybody at that point.
Well, what makes it hard is just that, with this Rise of Skywalker novel that kind of introduced that he had this plan for so many years, it's kind of like, well, yes, he had all these, backup plans in person, but there's also this backup plan, in the shadows that no one really knew about. That we haven't. We know it happened, but we don't really know when this really started. So that's why I just wondered with Omega. Could it have? Could this be?
It's possible. I think it's a bit of a stretch, only because the Sith acolytes, that story, we just don't know enough yet. We can speculate all we want. We just don't know. And I think that hopefully the Acolyte series will get into that exactly, because it's a huge piece of the puzzle that we're missing, though we didn't know, we didn't know we were missing it until all of a sudden Rise of Skywalker comes out as, wait a minute, this is a whole cult thing? Okay. And I got to read this book to even know what they are, because in the movie it's not even clear. It's just not clear at all.
You just get a taste of it in the book. It doesn't really get
Right.
so crystallized. And if the Acolyte is indeed about the Sith Acolytes that we see on Exegol, then I think that would enrich in the Rise of Skywalker for a lot of people, much like the Clone Wars enriching the prequels for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
Now, Acolyte is a High
great,
Republic series. So
well, not necessarily locked into the High Republic. It's just at the end of the High Republic era.
Right.
So I think it'll connect more.
Well, I hope
closely
so,
to
yeah.
what we know as prequel Jedi. That's what I think it'll connect more closely to. Or it could be just about these guys hanging out on Exegol, building Star Destroyers and just having a good old time. So that's maybe all it's about. Maybe
it'd
it's
be
a
nice.
sitcom.
Like, yeah, I was going to say, like 70s style sitcom.
Yeah,
Right.
like Taxi.
Right.
Yeah. Just hire Danny DeVito and call it a day. I'd watch it. I
Oh,
would
my.
love to see Danny DeVito in Star Wars. That would it took me out of it. Ah, shut up. I would love to see
Still Danny DeVito in
Star
Star Wars. Well, let's talk to not Tyler Page. Let's talk to Tyler Pace calling in from South Carolina. Yo, Tyler, chut. Hello. Tyler, come back to your phone.
Oh, we lost him. He might be on a delay. Maybe he's just listening via
Tyler.
YouTube. And
I can hear us. Let's see if he comes.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Hey,
yeah.
we're funny. All right.
Take me out of
Tyler,
it.
this is your last chance. You're going to have to call back.
Come on,
All right.
Tyler.
You just took us out of the show. That's what you did. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk to
Oh, man.
we got Brendan from Canada, eh?
Hey.
Wait a minute, what happened? Did I hang up?
Uh-oh.
Shoot. I hung up on
no.
Brendan, you're next. I'm sorry. I hung up. I hit the wrong button.
2 in a row.
Butter thumbs. Let's see. Megan. Megan. Oh, another Florida. Megan, are you hanging out with those other two in Florida tonight?
Well, we're bored down here because there's no hockey playoff game to watch tonight. It's not till tomorrow, so we're all just...
Lucky you. Lucky you.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
hanging
my
out
team ain't in the
watching
playoffs.
That batch.
Cool.
Sir. How are you?
Chut. Oh, good. Nice to hear from you.
Cool. Well, I just found your show recently, and I do a lot of my job, and it's been wonderful just, listening to you guys as I'm driving around and sitting in the traffic of Florida, and it's just been a lot of fun. So.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm glad to be along for the ride.
Yeah. Rather be in Florida.
I'm calling because I was curious about your theories about who hired Fennec Shand, because I think that it probably was the Kaminoans, but really to what end? Is it just to get Omega back? Is it to do more tests on her, to, get her genetic material? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think that she is... we're going to find out that she is essentially a clone of clones. I've said that my theory is that she is an amalgam of, if not the entire Bad Batch, several of them. I mean, the actual ones. They definitely signal to us in that first premiere episode that she displays various traits that are, sort of the superpowers of the Bad Batch members. So I think, to me, that much is clear. Now, why they did this, I keep saying that it's preservation. I think that they're constantly needing to upgrade. Maybe not constantly, but I think as the war was coming to an end, they realized that they needed to, roll out the new iPhone. They got to roll out the new technology. And the genetic material that they have from Django is deteriorated. And so why not sort of make a super clone? And that's really what this is about. This is about a super clone. And I think they need her back. And who knows? It could be a ploy to get all of them back. Because they figure if they have Omega, then they'll have them as well. But maybe they don't need them. Yeah. Maybe Omega's enough.
Yeah, maybe Fennec is after all of them. You know what I mean? Maybe she's after all of them, because when Omega mentions to Fennec, "Why don't you come with us?" She says, "That's the best idea I've heard in a long time." This is the opportunity for me to not only snag you, but also get the renegade band of brothers and bring them in front of the Empire. Because I'm sure there is also bounty on them as well, the Bad Batch. But how tracking a clone, the rise of the bounty hunters in the Star Wars universe. We see some bounty hunters in the prequels, guys like Jango Fett and, of course, Zam Wessel. But we don't really understand what their business is until we start seeing them more. We know more openly what they do by watching the first season of The Mandalorian. They're tracking these chain codes. They have pucks. They have trackers. They have all this stuff. And I think that's a result of the oppressive imperial technology that gives people lose their freedoms because they're constantly being tracked by the Empire. Everyone who lives within the Empire, they have these chain codes, and it's like they can be found anywhere if you just have the right tech. And so these bounty hunters all have this tech. But this would be very early on in that process. So I don't think Fennec Shand has that kind of technology at this moment, right? So as the Empire grows, the bounty hunters start exploiting their oppressive technology to use for their own benefits. That's why you have things like trackers and stuff like that. Why it's easy for bounty hunters to find you is because they're using the same tech the Empire uses. Maybe it's pirated tech or cobbled together.
I love
stuff.
that. That's a really cool theory. Man, it's just like in our own world when I think it was the FBI was really lobbying Apple to create a kind of a universal decoder of iPhone of iOS, and Apple kept saying to the FBI, it's like, well, if we do it for you, that means it has to exist, and if it exists, then it could fall into the hands of other people, and we don't want that. So, Megan, thanks very much for the call. Appreciate it. Please call back again. We'd love to hear more from you. It's always good to talk to new listeners. Jim, I want to go back to something you said. You mentioned that you took Fennec Shand, you took her for her word when she was sort of saying to Omega, "Oh yeah, let's go find your friends. I'll bring them in too." I didn't take it that way. I don't think Fennec Shand wanted to go up against those five guys.
Yeah, right. Well, she did take out Wrecker pretty quickly. He just rushed at her, nothing but brute and strength, and just rushed at her like a rhino, and she used her martial arts skills to immediately create a counter move and slam his head into the wall. It looked like she slammed his head into some kind of electronical device on the wall, and that knocked him out cold. And my son made me stop that part and say, well, now how did she just push that big guy aside? And I explained, he didn't do anything to make his approach to his attack a mystery. He just rushed at her, and she knows how to counter.
I thought she brought rocks down on him.
Did she bring something down on him? It happened so fast.
Yeah, I thought she shot the tunnel, and the rocks came tumbling down on him. The only one she had really had a physical contest with was Hunter, and he was out. He was stronger than her, but then she headbutted him and got out of there. But I feel like with Wrecker it was bringing the rocks down on him, in which people are speculating, oh, what's that going to do to his inhibitor chip? Is it going to turn it on even more? But I thought, given the fact that she was a bounty hunter and she was bringing this kid in, I thought she was, I don't know, rather gentle. I mean, considering it is
a kid.
It is exactly. But see, I feel like they were a lot rougher with Baby Yoda. I mean, they were punching him in the bag, and all that. So that's the way the Empire does things. I think the bounty hunters, again, there is, I think with some of them, there is some honor, there is a code, there is, they're not necessarily, just because they're bounty hunters doesn't mean that they're evil or have evil tendencies, Look
and
at
also,
the bounty hunter.
We know that Fennec Shand has honorable characteristics from our experience with her in The Mandalorian. Granted, this is an earlier version of her, but you have to think that her core moral value is intact, and she's not that vastly different from the person she grows up into. And also, when you talk about Baby Yoda, let's face it, Baby Yoda and Yaddle, they're freaks in a galaxy filled with them already. But they are the freakiest of the freaks because nobody knows anything about their species. Most people who see Yoda or Baby Yoda, they've never seen anything like that before. The hell is that? So that's why I think sometimes Baby Yoda gets roughed around a little bit, is because people are afraid of what they don't understand. And I don't think people understand the Yoda species. We as fans don't really understand the Yoda species. That's a mystery, and it's a mystery to us. I think it's also a mystery to the people actually living in the Star Wars universe. And I think some people might even get repulsed of this sweet,
impossible
Baby Yoda, the sweet Baby Yoda.
Hey, we've got Brendan back from Canada. Sorry, Brendan, did not mean to hang up on you. That was my bad. Welcome to the show.
Problem. Chut. How are you guys doing?
Doing real well. How are things up in the Great White North?
Well, it got hot here all of a sudden, so it's been kind of nice for the last week.
Same here.
Whereabouts in Canada are you?
I'm just over in Toronto, so I'm on the other side of the lake from you, I think.
Oh yeah, that's not too far. There's a roller coaster in Cleveland that you can actually see Canada when you're at the very top of that roller coaster. So I can see
CN Tower. We can see you just fine.
Anyway, all right. What's going on? What do you want to talk about? Bad Batch style.
How do you know you're seeing Canada? Do you spot like the flag flying?
Hey, that's what they say. They say when you get to the top of the coaster, you look, and if you see land, it's Canada on a clear day.
I see a maple leaf. I see a maple leaf. All right.
I've seen Brendan's house. What do you got to say?
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I saw the original trilogy first as I was growing up. But, of course, when I was growing up, I was watching the prequels. And one of my favorite things that George Lucas did with those was cast Tamora Morrison as the clones / Jango Fett.
Yeah.
And I always liked how he acted in that role, and also his voice later in Episode 3 when he was playing the clones. And watching Bad Batch, obviously, we're all really happy with what D. Bradley Baker's doing in the show, and it's amazing that he's playing all these different characters. But part of me has always been like, well, what if Tamora Morrison got to play some of these clones again, or in some kind of live action thing? And I've been really happy to see him back in The Mandalorian. Of course, now he's playing Boba Fett again. Maybe with Ahsoka coming up, maybe he'll play Rex if he shows up into that. I'd be super happy to see that. And I know I
think that's a certainty.
Like Battlefront. Yeah, well, in certain games like Battlefront, when those came out, the voice that they got for the clones was D. Bradley Baker, which is fine. But part of me is always like, I would like to have Tim Morrison in there because I just really enjoyed his performance. And he never really got to do too much as the clones. Like, I think all the clones in Episode 3 were digital, so they just put his face on a bunch of digital characters. So, anyway.
And he doesn't have a lot of dialogue.
So I just had this thought.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. It's like, hey, Obi-Wan, you dropped this. And execute Order 66 or fire him. Yeah, so I don't know if he'd be able to do it. It'd be like Eddie Murphy style. But if he could play like the Bad Batch in a live action version of this,
that'd be
probably
cool.
Never happen, but it'd be. I think that'd be pretty.
From the man who brought you the Nutty Professor and the Nutty Professor 2. Or no, that was Nutty Professor. Yeah, the clumps.
I think so. Yeah.
That is a really, thanks, Brendan. Really appreciate it. That's an interesting idea. Now that we're seeing this sort of two-way street now, it's actually a two-way street going from animation to live action and then back to animation, like in the case of Fennec Shand. What about seeing one of these Bad Batchers or multiples, Tim Morrison style? It'd be interesting. I don't know that. I think that there's so much variation in their physical, appearance that you wouldn't have to get. I don't know that you would have to get Tim Morrison to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Maybe with computer generated, computer technology, they could, if you can de-age a face, you could probably alter a face to make it match. But I guess my point is, I don't think you need Tim Morrison to do a live action Bad Batch. But I really dig the idea of a live action Bad Batch.
When you think of these clones of Jango Fett and the actors who played them, you always mention Tim Morrison, obviously. You always mention Daniel Logan, obviously. But everyone's forgotten about Bodhi Taylor. Bodhi is a New Zealand actor who also appeared as a clone during a certain age of their development. They grow from Daniel to Bodhi into Tim Morrison. That is the progression of clones. So what about Bodhi? Bring back Bodhi. That's what I'm starting.
So when does Daniel Logan in real life start looking like Bodhi Taylor? Is that going to happen?
Well, he kind of does already, doesn't he?
I haven't seen Daniel in such a long time.
We gotta get him back on the show.
Yeah. It's been a while, but we'll have to do a screen comparison.
We'll have to maybe mash him up or something.
Yeah, say, are you all Bodhi now?
Is this happening? Have you been Bodhified? Have you been Bodhified? Yes.
Oh, here we got Tyler Pace back. Tyler, you're on finally with Rebel Force Radio.
Hey guys,
don't be stalling now.
We hear you, Tyler. No, he got pulled away for something.
Oh.
What were you doing?
Yeah,
heating up some chili or something.
No, I was watching.
Watching the Bad Batch?
I was watching along on the YouTube feed. No, I was watching the YouTube feed.
Oh,
okay.
There's a delay.
They're saying my
could
name,
be up
but there's
to
no
a
one on the
couple
phone.
minutes sometimes.
Well, it's good to have you.
Thanks for taking my call back.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So before I jump into what I wanted to talk about, I just wanted to tell you guys, I know people say this all the time when they call in for the first time, but I really appreciate all the work and energy you guys put into RFR. It's great. I've been listening since Force Awakens came out. I wanted to hear some good analysis and stumbled across you guys, and I've not looked back.
Oh,
so
that's so
kind.
Just join Patreon.
Well, here's some good analysis, but I found you guys.
That's been great.
Sorry, Tyler. I'm just being self-deprecating. Go on.
Patreon's been great, and I just want to encourage everybody who's been listening. It's not on Patreon or Facebook group to go on. It's a great community, and getting the Q&A and the early access to the shows is great. So I just wanted to say thanks up front.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
But so I had just a couple of quick things I saw in this episode that I just thought were cool, and then two quick questions. So I was watching it with my son, and from the first 2 seconds when the ship comes in on that star field, to me it looked almost cinematic. I mean, I thought I was like watching a movie live action or something. It was
so
really
true.
The quality of the animation is so good.
So good.
And then when they landed on the planet and they're coming out in their clone trooper outfits, I looked over at my son, I'm like, these guys have got to get better disguises. And then Echo comes around looking like a droid, and I was like, that's awesome.
I loved that moment.
Really cool
that might have been my favorite moment in the whole episode, is the fact that he can actually go in disguise as a droid. That was very cool.
I loved it. Yeah, and it would be a cool action figure too. To have that, just hint, Hasbro, 3 3/4 inch, please.
Oh, you could have interchangeable parts. That would be really fun.
Yeah, but I loved how he was getting pulled around the corner, and he just sort of looks back and waves his little flipper arm. And somebody was like, "Yeah, that arm of his really disorients me every time." I was like, "Oh, I kind of get that," but listen, he's Echo being Echo. And when I see that little arm, I always think of a Borg.
Yeah.
I think more Trek than Wars. It hasn't really established itself as a Star Wars thing to me. It still feels very Borg. But at least now Echo has a Lobot headband.
Yes.
That's very Star Wars. You never see Borgs wearing the Lobot headgear.
No.
They're so not cool enough. And so that's what makes it. That's what made it
his
Star
helmet
Wars.
has the cutout to fit that band when he puts his helmet on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Hey, did anybody notice that Walrus Man was in this episode, grooving to some tunes in his freighter as he was driving along? Did anybody see
Did
Walrus
see
Man?
that. Yeah.
And that was Walrus Man. That
Yeah,
was
I was actually going to comment
Baba.
on.
Go on, Tyler.
Yeah, all the. Sorry, the delay is kind of getting me.
That's okay.
All the original trilogy aliens that are coming back in, just real subtly dropped in. There was some Biff in a few episodes, and then there was the Sullus and the Aqualish and the Reeves. I think that's really cool.
And does anyone think out there that doing that makes the galaxy feel so small? Because I know that was a line that they used to use. Like, well, we can't have, we can't have these same aliens show up all the time. And I'm like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
It's Star Wars. Yeah, you can.
That's what gives it its flavor.
Right.
I mean, we go out in our day-to-day life and we see a lot of different people, and they might be the same species of human race. Yeah. But we get along just fine and meet all kind of interesting people in our day-to-day lives. So in the Star Wars universe, with the rich history of those great aliens that George Lucas himself hand-developed with his art team, take his ass and put it in his armpits with the maquettes. We're not going down that path. No, but we got a funny video on YouTube you need to see. Yeah. George Lucas and the maquettes. Check that out on our YouTube channel, and you'll know why we laugh at that every time. But I mean, it's just a rich history of these great alien characters, the best in the history of science fiction.
By far, nothing comes close.
Nothing comes close. It's Star Wars.
That brings up one of my other questions. One of the questions I was going to ask. Do you guys, I've felt like, and you've criticized in the past the aliens they brought into the sequel trilogy being kind of boring looking, one note, and I agree with that. I kind of think in for the cartoons as well, or the animation, like I wish they would keep the fact that some of these alien species don't speak galactic basic language and give them subtitles and kind of add a little more just sort of a foreign sort of nature.
I agree.
When they're speaking English, it kind of takes me out of it a little bit.
I understand. I wonder if there might be some consideration that because it's animated and they realize that could be a younger audience, that they don't think that that's necessarily a viewer friendly thing to do, to have subtitles. Yeah. I'm with you. I love the goofy sounding languages in Star Wars. I still get goosebumps when Jabba says his first line and you see the subtitles. And I mean, that had such a huge, Jabba for me was like the Star Destroyer for the people who saw A New Hope in the theaters. My mind was so blown and I loved it. And I can remember having friends family at the time, helping me understand the subtitles, leaning over to me in the movie theater and repeating those to me. So I just think that it's probably due to the medium.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I thought about that
Jason.
too, but then you've got guys, or you got like Fennec Shand, like shooting guys in the chest and knocking them out of their speeder.
Well, I didn't say they were consistent in this in these rules. It's the only thing I can think of, and it also could be. I don't know. It may have something to do with sensitivity to inclusion, and I think that there's not many things on television or in the movies, unless you seek out, say foreign films or something, where you need subtitles in order to follow the plot. All that being said, Tyler, I really agree with you. I love and I am missing alien languages in Star Wars. Like the guy I hated, even though I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I hated that character from The Last Jedi. Well, I don't know. He came from over there. You know, it's like he should have had some funky alien language, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, give us some chubas or a boshuba or something, you know. I mean, give us something, you know, bodinki, dadinki, una tuda cholo, or whatever. That's what we want. It's the exotic quality. That his, you know, George Lucas knew what he was doing with the world building.
Yep.
And what I've always appreciated about George as a father, I like the fact that he said, yeah, you know, because he took some heat from 20th Century Fox when he first released Star Wars, and there were those sequences with Greedo, and there were those subtitles, and Fox was like, you should really have this guy talk in English. It's a PG movie for kids. And George said, oh, no. Parents and their kids will bond as the parents read that stuff to the kids as the movie's happening. So it's more, it's a more active
Never heard that.
experience.
I love that.
Oh, George, he had said that.
That's
George
very cool.
Lucas took child psychology very seriously when he was developing the original trilogy, so much so that he consulted with child psychologists when it came down to the Darth Vader reveal, the I am your father reveal.
Right.
And as the psychologist predicted, most kids, if they can't accept it, will assume it's a lie. And I was one of those kids in 1980. I thought Darth Vader was lying because I couldn't accept it. By the time 83 rolled around, I had matured significantly, and I was able to take my medicine.
So you accepted the truth.
Yes, Vader, I did. I still think you're lying, but whatever.
Tyler, I think you still had one other point you wanted to land with us.
Yeah, just one quick thing. So I was just at Galaxy's Edge like a month ago, and
awesome.
I was noticing as they were walking through the marketplace in this episode, I don't know how intentional it is, but knowing Disney, I'm sure it's very intentional. It looks, there are spots of that marketplace that look almost exactly like the marketplace you walk through on Bad
I thought
the fact that even that little
I thought that the Trader's Outpost, the pawn shop guy, wasn't that what you call it?
Well, they set the toys out in little bowls like that. You can just go up and pick one up like Omega did, and they have those exact same Stormtrooper dolls in Galaxy's Edge.
I thought it was
those are derived from Rogue One. Those were the toys that Jen Erso had. That's where those come from. Great marketing opportunity for Disney, no question about it.
What's the name of that place in Galaxy's Edge? The so-and-so shop?
You have like the Savvy's.
Well, there's like the Toydarian toy manufacturers.
Yeah,
and,
they got all kinds
there's
of
like
cute
several different shops.
No,
in that
but there's
area.
the big one, the big shop with the animatronics and the dude you go in and he's
Doc
Ondor's. I thought that's
Ondor's.
that's what was the inspiration behind the little pawn shop here.
Yeah, do you think the Bad Batch will travel?
Guy in there kind of like examine stuff and count stuff on a little abacus back there while you're shopping.
Do you think the Bad Batch will travel to Batuu? I think that's the ultimate tie-in right there. And I think the Bad Batch would be a good show to give that a shot.
I think that's very possible. Very possible.
Yeah. I would actually like to see it. I would like to see legitimate canonization of what's going on over there at the Disney parks. Because I think it'll give it a little more authenticity and integrity if we actually see characters running around in the same environment you get a walk in as a tourist.
Totally.
I think that'd be fun.
And Northern Canuck 77 here on the chat says Mando needs to go to Batuu, and that's absolutely the case. And there were rumors that Batuu was going to get a Mandalorian makeover, that they were going to you were going to start seeing more characters from Mandalorian. Yeah. I know. Hey, speaking of rumors, Jim, we're getting a ton of comments in the chat about this, and we might as well we'll talk more about it on the weekly show, but I know a lot of you are asking about it, about the Dave Filoni thing. the announcement.
Filoni, the executive.
Yeah. Now,
Pish posh.
Now, mainstream media is trying to blow this off. They're trying to say, yeah, right. They changed their website and published that Dave Filoni is now executive creative director at Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we don't know if there are there other executive creative directors? It doesn't mean that he is necessarily the one and only.
Yeah. You also have other George Lucas Padawans, John Knoll and Doug Chang. They also received the
executive creative director.
These are the guys who come from George Lucas.
This is good news. So don't let some of the media outlets poo-poo this and say this was just a change of the website and that the promotion to Filoni was, happened a few months ago. That doesn't matter. It still happened.
Yeah.
It still happened. So it's relevant.
There's a restructuring of creatives happening at Disney overall. And this may be one of those maneuvers going on, or it could be just simply a way of keeping big shots like Filoni, Chang, and Knoll locked into Lucasfilm for the foreseeable future. I like it a lot, and but again, the promotion happened a year ago, and only now the website is catching up. As you know, Jason, corporate websites often slip behind when it comes to the hierarchy of their companies.
I know that. I'm aware.
And in this case, Lucasfilm was woefully behind in updating their website with these new additions to the executive ranks of Lucasfilm. Of course, Doug Chang had been, and he'd had an executive position for a number of years. I don't think this really means anything different from Dave Filoni other than the fact that his job title actually reflects what he does for the company and what he has been doing for years and years. Filoni's had his fingerprints on everything Star Wars over the last 10 years, especially since the sequel era. Dave Filoni was involved in the development of all the sequel films, and he had a voice at the table for all of them. And we know what he does in animation. So essentially, they're giving Dave a title that matches what he's already been doing. A lot of people think that he's going to knock Kathleen Kennedy off of her throne on top of the hill, but I don't see that happening. It's status quo.
It is status quo, but I want to rewind the tape just for a second, and so that you can clarify. Because if I was listening, I would go, What did he just say?
Uh-oh. What did I just say?
Well, you said that he had a seat at the table for the development of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, yes, he did. It's documented all over the place. And he was a member of a team gathered together of Lucasfilm insiders called the Visionaries. And they were involved in the early development of The Force Awakens. Dave Filoni had a voice at the table for that stuff. And
The Force Awakens, that's not the whole sequel trilogy. Because I don't think that Dave Filoni was along for the ride for that whole saga.
He does get mentioned in all of the Art of books. He gets mentioned in all of them. However, his mentions in the Rise of Skywalker Art of book refers to meetings that were being held for the development of The Force Awakens. So maybe I should clarify a little bit.
I think he was working with George on the development of The Force Awakens. I don't think he was working with J.J. Abrams on the development of The Force Awakens.
Interesting. I mean, we'd have to ask Dave himself, but he doesn't return our calls anymore. I sent him a congrats.
So take that, J.R. Eaton, on the chat. Read a book. I have read a few books, pal, and I know enough to know. And I've interviewed Dave Filoni personally enough to know that the sequel trilogy doesn't have Dave Filoni's fingerprints on it, dude. It just doesn't. So listen to a podcast.
But he was involved in meetings for the development of it, and that is
before it became what it became.
Well, possibly. But
All right, let's take a call. Josh from PA. We got a couple more calls.
I did say, though, I sent Dave Filoni a congrats from Rebel Force Radio, and his response was nothing. He didn't.
Yes, shocking. Yeah, Josh from Pennsylvania.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there again.
What's going on, man?
Hey,
Is that all you want to say?
How you guys doing? I thought I would do. That's my Obi-Wan impression. I know it's pretty terrible.
That was awesome. Don't sell yourself short, kid. You got a future.
Yeah, that's what I planned. But I watched what's the episode called? Cornered. I watched the 4th episode today. I thought it was much better than the last episode. I really enjoyed seeing Fennec Shand back, and that's what I wanted to ask: is what is her role? What is her role in the future? Is she gonna? Are they gonna give her an arc where they flip a 180 and she actually decides to team up with the Bad Batch against the Empire, and or is she gonna try to keep luring Omega to the Empire, or is she working for the Empire? Like we don't know, but yeah, that's what I want to ask. Also,
that's a good one.
That's what I basically want to ask, and it's weird because like you watch The Mandalorian, and she seems like she's she seems like a villain at first, and then she gets killed off, and then a year later she gets brought back, and then turns out that she's actually working. It turns out that she's actually working against the Empire with Boba Fett.
Right.
Or at least so it seems, and then she helps Mando and all the rest of retrieve Baby Yoda from what's his name again?
Moff Gideon.
What's his name?
Mm-hmm.
Moff Gideon. Yeah,
right.
Thank you. Yeah, Moff Gideon. Thank you. But it's I'm just interested to see where it goes from there.
It's very interesting. Thank you, Josh. Fennec Shand, and what is her role in this? Jim, you had said that this episode you disputed my claim that it was filler because it introduced Fennec Shand, and Fennec Shand has clearly a role to play much later in the future in Mandalorian. So what do you think is going to be, this is all speculation, of course, what do you think is going to be Fennec Shand's role to play in all of this? And is there anything that connects this deal with her and Omega, and then what we see later with Baby Yoda? She just the go-to for bounty hunting children?
The go-to. I think that we'll see some parallels between the relationship that forges between Fennec Shand and Omega, and compare it to the relationship that forges between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. At first, Mandalorian is hunting Baby Yoda. Mm-hmm. But as he gets to know Baby Yoda, Grogu, he proves his worth and proves that he's pretty flippin' special. And I think that we're going to have a similar reveal when it comes to Omega. We're going to learn she's something special. She's going to do something that's going to blow our minds. Just like Grogu with the mud horn. That opened up the Mando's eyes. He still carried through by turning in his bounty and claiming his prize. But then he couldn't live with it anymore because he knew there was something special about Baby Yoda, so he had to go back and rescue him. And as a result, the two became very fond of each other. Could we see something like that, similar, happen with Fennec Shand and Omega? Or at least something where Fennec displays compassion and sympathy for the kid. Shows her true colors. Like I said, she has that moral core that's intact. And I think that our caller, was his name Josh? He was exactly right on in his prediction that Fennec Shand will then turn the tables and turn out to be a good thing for Omega.
Yeah, she's either a droid, by the way, or a vampire, because the woman doesn't age. I like what you said about her perhaps displaying some sort of, compassion for Omega. I was waiting for that too. So that was the other payoff that I was waiting for, because there was part of me, I don't know why. I really don't know why, but I'm watching this episode and seeing Fennec Shand and hearing the rumors that Fennec Shand was going to be in it, thinking to myself that she's going to become an ally of the Bad Batch. I don't know why that was my assumption, but I still feel that way, possibly, that she is going to become an ally to the Bad Batch. And which could then, think about this, there's the whole Bad Batch clone, Jango Fett, Boba Fett. So how do we know that the Bad Batch might not be the ones that lead Fennec Shand to Boba Fett? Could be.
Could be. Now, you mentioned her appearance, vampire, not aging.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the spread of time between the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian? It's like 30 years, right?
About 30. Yeah,
I'd say
that's fair.
This series is happening at the end of the Clone Wars, and so that was 20 years before A New Hope. And the Mandalorian then takes place, 10 years after A New Hope? 5 years after Jedi?
Yeah.
Something like that. So
Right.
so roughly
6 years.
30 years. Roughly 30 years. How old do you think Ming-Na Wen is? Just take a wild guess.
I know the answer because I looked it up.
Yeah.
I looked it up.
I think you and me are on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Ming-Na Wen is an amazing looking 60-year-old woman.
Not quite 60. I think she's like 58 years old.
Oh, okay. All right. I was rounding.
I think
up.
she was
You never
born in
round up on a
63.
woman's age. Yeah. So
yeah, no.
But she's
or anyone over the age of 50 for
but
that
she-
matter.
but she
including
looks-
present company.
yeah. No, but she looks fantastic. I mean, she looks well.
Yeah,
Clearly, she's in amazing physical shape. I mean,
Right.
but yes.
She
so
would be so she would be 28 in this episode if we wanted to use the age of Ming-Na Wen as a barometer. And I think we have to because we're basing her appearance on Ming-Na Wen portraying the character in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So so I don't think she's so much of a vampire as just an exquisite human specimen.
Indeed, she is. Indeed, she is.
Yes.
Okay, couple more calls here before we call it a night. Let's check in another Patreon member, our buddy Eric from Phoenix. Hello, Eric.
Oh, Eric, of course.
How are things in Phoenix?
Chut, guys.
Chut.
Nope, things are great. Loving the chat. Great job tonight, guys. And
Thank you.
typical, the callers have done a great job. So I had 3 things on my list. All
Mhm.
3 of them have been covered, but I thought I'd go back to one of them, which is the quality of the animation. And I just think it can't be overstated how good the animation is in this episode. And specifically, there are 2 parts in this episode where, to me, it really stood out. Number one, when Omega, I did that for you, Jason.
Thank
Omega
you. I'm
was
getting.
being chased through the-
People are having seizures in the chat every time I say Omega instead of Omega.
FJ did it.
Yeah.
FJ did it on the show,
Yeah.
the weekly RFR this
And
week.
also, I love the way Daniel Craig says Omega as in the watch. She says she says Rolex. He says Omega. Yeah.
Omega.
It's definitely it's definitely Omega. But when she's running through the city, there's a scene where there's smoke across the screen, and they kind of tilt the camera, and she comes through the smoke. And I mean, they couldn't have done that in 2008 with the animation technology they had. I mean, it was phenomenal. And then the whole chase scene is a total callback to episode 2, the Coruscant chase scene. And I know episode 2 gets a bad rap, and there's a lot of criticism of it, and some of it rightly so. But I will tell you, to this day, that whole chase scene in Coruscant still holds up, and it's phenomenal, and it looks great.
I think episode 2 is
CG.
aging just fine, actually. There are some things that are maddening about it, but you make a good point, Eric. One of the reasons that the callback works so well is because the animation is so good, and it looks so close to what we saw or what we remember seeing in episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So that, you're right. It's a testament to where, I mean, if you were to look at animation 25 years ago, you couldn't get close to a theatrical film. And now it's conflating so nicely with our memory, at least as far as our memories of the film goes. I haven't seen any side by side, but it's a huge testament to the quality. There's no question. We were speculating prior to the Bad Batch premiering, would they keep the quality up? Because we know that one of the reasons that Clone Wars went bye-bye with Disney was they thought they could do, hey, we're Disney. We'll do animation a lot cheaper, a lot more efficiently. We don't need all your fancy this and your fancy that. And, hey, how the worm has turned. And here they are premiering their new show with the Clone Wars style animation.
Yes, hashtag Save the Clone Wars started here on Rebel Force Radio, my friends. And guys within Lucasfilm who felt the same way, they spread that news around. And I think a big selling point was like, hey, we have all of these assets ready to incorporate them into this brand of animation. Let's use it. And we're seeing it on full display. We're seeing all 7 years of the great accomplishments of Clone Wars animation coming together in this single series, The Bad Batch. I mean, it's just incredible how populated these planets are, these cities they go to, all the different starships and everything. I brought it up earlier, but it's so true. I mean, there's just different droids and aliens and ships and locales and everything. It's just really fleshed out. And that's because these guys have been developing these assets going back to the mid-2000s.
It's almost like having this big collection of action figures, and they pull them back out. And, hey, you know what? We'll put a little paint on this one, and now it's a different droid. And we'll do, it's so cool that that's the way it works now. Very cool. Anything else, Eric?
Yeah, just one other little quick comment, and this is a very small thing, but when Fennec Shand shot the police guys chasing after her,
yeah,
I mean, the animation of the bolts hitting them, you see the blaster bolt, the fire in their chest, and then it slowly goes away. I mean, you guys, you hit it.
Oh,
I mean,
right out of
not
episode 4.
sparing expenses on this. Yeah, 100%, and I love it. Hey, great job, guys. Appreciate
Thanks, man.
everything you do. Have a great night.
Love your support. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a Patreon and a good friend of the show. All right, I think we've got time for one more. Let's go. Drew from Columbus. I think we got a brand new caller here. Hello, Drew. OH.
Shut, guys. First time caller.
Hey,
there we go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in Columbus. I mean, no, great to have you with us. Great to have you with us.
So just got done watching, just enough time to jump on the live here. So this is the first time I've actually gotten to catch one of the live shows. So,
awesome.
Recently stumbled across you guys, so I'll be continuing to listen to your podcast and stuff at work.
Oh,
on
great.
Runs, things like that.
Thanks,
so,
man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Couple thoughts from tonight. I think this one's kind of funny. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that penguin-looking droid that helped them put the starship back together. So that was kind of cool. You guys might know better than I, but that's the first time I've seen that little thing. That was fun.
Was that Clink?
Clink?
I don't know which one that was, but it's like almost like the astromech with the little arms that kind of
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we were talking about him. We were talking about him in our house, and we were wondering if that was like a conceptual design maybe created by Ralph McQuarrie when he was developing the R2 look, the astromech look. Did Ralph spit out a design that looks something like that, and the designers are using it now and making it a reality in Star Wars? I didn't have time to look through my Art of books today, so I'm going to spend the weekend trying to find this guy. He says, but does anybody know? I mean, yes, the one with the slinky arms.
Yeah,
and
it
legs.
reminded me, and the chat saying this Lost in Space. I love Lost in Space, so it reminded me of Robot's arms. Oh dear!
Danger! Will
You metallic booby!
Metallic booby. That was the name of my punk rock band in the 80s.
love
metallic
Dr.
booby.
Smith. I just got to say, I've said this before. Dr. Smith, he's doing a convention, the great Jonathan Harris, and somebody raised their hand and they said, where you have this amazing accent. Are you British? And he said, no, dear boy, I'm just affected. He was from Jersey, I believe. He was a Jewish guy from Jersey. Anyway, all right. I don't know. It's all the Lost in Space talk. Drew, we're taking up your precious time.
No worries. You guys are having fun with it. That's why.
That's right.
So, the one now I'm going to get a little bit more serious.
Okay.
So I listened to last week's episode and I heard the concept or the thought process behind, Clone Wars plural and potentially the stormtroopers versus clone troopers. What's the fate of Kamino? And, how does that tie in with things like the Mandalorian and future Star Wars canon? And my thought when I'm hearing you guys say that and watching Bad Batch is, yes, it leads to that point at some point, but Sidious probably has a plan. Right? Kamino is an asset. The cloning technology is utilized. We know that in the future. There's hints of it in Mandalorian and obviously not so subtle hints of it in Rise of Skywalker. Does Sidious just have a plan to intentionally wipe out all the clones? Everyone thinks Kamino is gone, but that's just his side project on the hidden side project. He takes that technology or even that race of people, and now it's his secret lab to do his nefarious Sith things with. And do we see that in Bad Batch?
Well, you're definitely making me think that Palpatine is he's playing 3-dimensional chess, right? I mean he's several steps ahead. I like this idea. Here all the time we're thinking that his using Kamino to create the Army of the Republic was the end game. What if that was just an iterative step? Once he starts to see what they're capable of, he's got to be thinking about, what if I was able to do this with Force sensitives? What, instead of having to cultivate fallen Jedi and convert them, to my side, what if I was able to just grow them in petri dishes? I mean, that's got to be very attractive. Right. So maybe that is the end game or part of the game.
Or maybe he's appropriating their technology so he can provide himself with everlasting life.
Right, and that's what ends up on Exegol.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Been thinking about the Dark Empire
as my brother-in-law
lately too. What about your brother-in-law?
Yeah, my brother-in-law called it in the Rise of Skywalker the jar of Snoke.
Yeah.
We see an Exegol on Kylo's walk up to Sidious.
Billy Mack took you one step further and referred to it as the pickle jar of Snoke. So the pickle jar, pickled Snoke. Who wants a pickled Snoke?
Yeah, how did the pickle companies, how did they miss that opportunity for a tie-in during that when that film was out? Because you could have had Snoke-shaped pickles in those jars. Where are the dill people? Where the Vlasic people?
Vlasic.
Yeah.
They'd be sitting there on the shelves of Rancho Obi-Wan. Fermenting forever.
Hey, speaking of what, you just reminded me, I have a trunk of Baby Yoda Mandalorian water that I got to ship out to Rancho Obi-Wan.
Water?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I was
Baby Yoda water.
Yeah. Hey, Drew, thanks for the call, buddy. No, I was minding my own business, as I always do, and I'm just strolling the aisles of my local office, Max, and there's this huge mountain of bottled water cases, and they're all wrapped with this great Mandalorian graphics. And so I texted Jimmy and I said, "Hey, do you think this is something that Steve might need?" Because Steve will often tell you that he doesn't know everything. He doesn't see everything. No, it's not. Okay, Jimmy's got his Baby Yoda drinking water. It's not Baby Yoda water as in that's what Baby Yoda drinks. It's branded Baby Yoda water. Anyway,
I don't know. My Baby Yoda wants some water, apparently, so I'm going to
Right, is that like the old My Puppy Puddles? Is that toy going to go pee in the corner? after this?
I usually breastfeed this little guy.
Oh,
But he wants
too
a
much.
Drink of water.
Too much. Anyway, so I shot Steve an email and I said, and I sent him a picture. I said, do you have this? And he's like, no. I just read his emails in his voice. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
He
You
goes,
have to.
Would you send it out to me? Or, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to send it out to you. So it's been rattling around in my trunk for a couple of weeks. I gotta ship it out. It's heavy as hell. I mean, it's gonna have to take it to the UPS store, you know, and they're gonna have to like put a special box around it. It's not. Anyway, excuses. All right, we're out of here.
Shipping water to Rancho Obi-Wan.
Like a case. It's a case of bottled water, man. Come on. What do you want from me?
I sent him a box of Mandalorian grapes. So what do you want from me? Went to Sam's Club one day and saw these grapes. He's like, you better send me some of those too. I was like, Steve.
It's the weirdest.
Gladly.
It's the weirdest thing.
Anytime I could make a contribution to Rancho Obi-Wan, it's almost like the dream come true to me.
Oh yeah. Just the thought that my case of bottled water is going to be on a shelf there. That's
forever immortalized.
Right. You got to figure water is going to age better than, you know, those C-3PO, the C-3PO cereal did, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, this was a lot of fun. Huge thanks to everyone that called in. Also to Tyler, our call screener. Chut,
hey.
wave to the people. Tyler, did we miss anything? You know, as the official program observer, was there anything that we left out? That you're listening to the show, you're talking to the callers, and you go, I can't believe nobody mentioned this.
Oh, no. You know, I think you guys covered it. But there was one caller from Ireland who had a great accent, and he had to step away.
Oh, what a shame.
And I really hope he calls back.
Oh, I bet he was calling
next week.
He was calling to take Jimmy to task on his Liam Neeson Irish accent. I mean, Mack's really Irish. You can tell. Look at that mug.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
That's the mug I was talking about.
That's how you can tell, baby.
Anyway, no, it's great discussion. I'm still not convinced that this wasn't filler episode, but I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter because doing these after shows are fun, and we're just hanging out talking about Star Wars, regardless of, you know, the episode. And it's not like I didn't like the episode. I'm going to stick to what I said at the beginning. My complaint was that I felt that after the 23 minutes we spent, we earned the right to know who had paid or commissioned Fennec Shand to go after Omega. I still stand by that. Or as we had another caller and Jimmy Mack also pointed out, if we would have seen that, perhaps that foreshadowing that Fennec Shand might end up being an ally of the Bad Batch at some point. Real quick, I want to get through these. We love the super chats. Thank you guys so much. Here's Tim Schreffler saying the Empire has been xenophobic traditionally. Great point, Jimmy Mack, as you mentioned about the different alien species.
Oh, yes. Oh, well, I think specifically talking about Baby Yoda and how.
Oh, right.
You know, it would be very a pervasive attitude throughout the galaxy to look away from something that you don't understand, you know. And I think a lot of alien species dealt with severe bigotry and prejudice as the Empire established their rule across the galaxy, because that's something they practiced. So it became part of the lifestyle of a lot of people who were under the oppression of the Empire.
And don't forget, you know, slavery becomes a thing under the Empire and all of that. So we've got
nasty
a lot.
Business.
Yeah, very nasty business. Oh, look at this. Props for Eric from Phoenix. Tyler is a great call screener, needs a raise. Super chat of $5. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll just give that $5 to Tyler. There you go. You just paid him this week.
$5 coming your way,
$5 to Tyler.
Just buy me a beer, man.
Something tells me Tyler gets taken care of in some ways. We got, what is this? Is this £5? €5? I'm not sure what this is, but it's from Gerard. We appreciate it very much. What about the similarities with episode 2? Love the speeder chase through the streets. Plus Fennec Shand is much better than Zam Wessel. Oh, thank you, Gerard. I wanted to mention that. Yes, definitely getting Zam Wessel vibes. from Fennec Shand in this, especially during that speeder chase. Yeah, I think Fennec Shand is a lot cooler than Zam, but I kind of like Zam. I don't want to see much of her, but from a certain point of view, she's not bad. Thank you again, all the super chats. Jimmy Mack, final thoughts here as we wrap up Cornered, episode 4.
Well, I think there's a lot of cool things happening in this episode, and I do believe that this is establishing a foundation for Fennec Shand's eventual role in this series. We're starting to see the evolution of her and how she becomes who we meet then in The Mandalorian. So I still understand why her helmet and the face visor, it kind of like it opens a little bit and closes a little bit, but I mean, what purpose does that serve? Why is it hinged? Why? I mean, these are things that keep me up at night. I don't know. But I really think that there's a lot of good things happening in this episode. And I just like getting to know these characters a little bit better. And I think it's an appropriate episode for this early in the series, that we have, episodes that might feel a little filler, a little throwaway, what have you. But just they reinforce our experiences with these characters, reinforces elements of their characteristics, which I think is all important when the stakes rise and get higher. That way we've developed a bond with these characters through little stories like this, just by getting to know them. When you take characters and you throw them into immediate jeopardy, sometimes it falls flat because you don't make the connection to the characters through an appropriate amount of time and going with them as they're meeting their challenges, even on a much smaller level. So that's why I think stuff like this is really important, and why it will be important when there's a big payoff later in the season. So all in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I love the animation. I can't help but just admire that starship they fly around in. I love it every time it's on the screen. It almost looks film realistic at times.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's a testament to the great animation crew that's working on this. And all the animators that worked at Lucas Animation developing the Clone Wars over all those years. They a lot of them aren't with the company anymore, but their developments in animation have done something to this series to push it over the top. So all of those guys, and then the guys who are still there, guys like Joel Aaron, we talk about seeing Omega walk out of the fog and seeing explosions and all that stuff. He's the guy who adds that ultra realism to the animation through his genius photographic skills. And I just really appreciate that. I feel like the Clone Wars lives. I really feel like we saved the Clone Wars and it's continuing. And it could be something that is never ending and continues to fill in the gap of the dark times, the early days of the Empire, the period between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. Still very fertile ground for storytelling. And if the Bad Batch is the type of animation that Lucasfilm wants to use to tell us that story of that period of time, then I say bring it. Bring on the Bad Batch. Bring on other spin-off series that really focus in on those dark times. Give us a Darth Vader series based in this time period with these assets. That's what I think the fans really want. Nuke Gunray not in this episode because he's dead.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio and the Mandalorian After Show. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember, I didn't hit the button.
Hit the button.
The Force will be with you, always.
He's got a button that says Obi-Wan.